It is Talking Reds with NordVPN. It is John Gibbons hosting. We are back in the UK. Well, Josh never left, but he is Mr. Worldwide. So unpack that. Neil Atkinson was away with me, and we're here to talk about a few things that have happened since, but it felt like they were all business out in the US, Neil. It felt they were all, focused on player development and, making the tour a success in every possible way, which was good to see. And then now they're back, it's like, right, who else do we need?
It does seem very much as though that's where they've ended up. I think the overall part of this is, I think he's now had long enough with a number of them, and I think he's also got to look at a couple of things, and I think also the reality of the way in which he wants to play is hitting in there, and I think there needs to be a couple of bodies, and I think that's part of our superpower really, is that we've got good numbers, but I think we can add to it and we can have a little bit more, and I think that'll give him the moves that he needs to be able to play the way in which he wants to play. I'm eager to see them do a thing or two now. I think it seems clear to me where they need, I think ultimately I'd like to see them do 3. I think I might end up being a little bit disappointed. I wouldn't mind 3 with an option of a 4th if the opportunity comes in. I think realistically it might be 2 with the option of a 3rd if the opportunity comes in. If that is the case, then they need to sort of work out where they can stretch, where they can maybe ask a player to hang on a year, which may well be the reality with Vandenberg, perhaps, that if they feel as though they want one more defensive body, it might be that they decide to run with what they've got in that area. Having spent much of certainly the start of the summer, we all thought Vandenberg wasn't going to be here, we all thought they'd cash in, and it may well be that he's had a little look and what he needs in the middle of the park, he feels as though one more would help. I don't expect it to be anyone who profiles that much different to what's already there. I think it's clear what he wants as central midfielders to be able to do as a top priority, which is to be able to bait the press, build the play and then back the play up. And I think that doesn't involve winning tackles first and foremost. I think that's a bonus and something he thinks he'll be able to get them to do, but he may well think he wants one more who's got that in his back pocket, given the fact that we've seen in seasons gone by the couple of these players Liverpool have got can get injuries. So all in, I think there's that, and then obviously I think it seems pretty clear that the club wants Tony Gordon. Whether or not they get him is a separate conversation, but the very fact that they're prepared to go there, I don't think you can argue with it. I think it looks like that's there, clear as day. There's been other links to other forwards over the course of the window. I like the Kubo link. I still wonder if that might come back alive, but I think they will be looking for one more player who plays, if we're saying it's 4-2-3-1, who plays in the 3 or the 1, and more the 3 I think, but may well be the 1. I'd be surprised if it was, but I think that's taking shape now. And I expect to see them do some business in the next 10 days because, I think ultimately he also needs to get time working with them, which now comes in between the games, from if you count from Sevilla all the way through until the end of August, until they play Manchester United. It's amongst the best training time he's going to get all season, so they need to move.
What have you made of them, Josh? Because I'm not really caught up with you in terms of the games and what you made of the action. I know you stayed up late for a couple of the games, so what did you make of them, and in regard to what he does have to work with before we talk about what he might need?
I think there's been loads that's been dead exciting and dead impressive that you've seen from the pre-season. I think from basically the first moment we heard Slot speak, he gave off an impressive aura, and I know people love the word aura these days, but he has, he's said all the right things for me, and that's continued on to what he's done around the training pitch, and the things we sort of heard him screaming at the players over the course of America. It's translated to on the pitch, because I think one of the big things that you wanted to see was, we none of us were expecting Jurgen Klopp 2.0. None of us wanted Jurgen Klopp 2.0 because there's only one Jurgen Klopp for us. We wanted someone who came in who was a bit of a continuity choice, in the sense that we believe this is a good squad. We believe it's a squad that's on an upwards trajectory, and we didn't really want to see a backward step within that. And it feels like with Slot, we're on the right track in the very early stages of it, and I don't want to sort of get too carried away about what we're seeing, because it's only ultimately pre-season, but it's about the performances for me as much as the results. And we've seen a clear sort of display of his style from early on, that there's going to be more control in a sort of passing sense, more control in a possession sense from his squad, and that looks like it's translated even to some of the younger lads in these early pre-season friendlies. So there's been loads to sort of get your teeth into there, and I think from looking at what you guys have done when you've been been out there and the content you've produced, that excitement that was there from the sort of, the American Reds for seeing the Reds and seeing Arne Slot's first few games up close, that's translated to back here because everyone is just absolutely dying to see the Reds at Anfield now.
On the new players point, you said there you need times to work with them. If they can get someone in quickly, then what'd be good for the new player is that he's in a similar sort of situation as Trent, Virgil, Joe Gomez,
McAllister, Diaz.
Yeah, so there's lots of them who will be starting at the same point, and I think that would really help. Whoever this player is. I mean, they wouldn't. Now be involved at the weekend. Even if they get one in sort of the next couple of days, they wouldn't necessarily be involved in sort of those games. But it's not like they're miles behind everyone else if they can get someone in quickly. In fact, from the point of view of working with a new manager, that they're starting in quite a similar position to a lot of these established players.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the thing that's happening at the moment, is that players are coming back in, they're doing the first sessions and they're going from there. And I think if, for instance, if they are looking for someone who's played a couple of seasons in a double pivot or something like that, then, we can maybe act as though this stuff, footballers are clever, they're good at football. It's one of the things that helps. I think that they can take things under the wing very, very quickly and go from there. Certainly if they've been playing in the position quite consistently. I'm of the view that would help at this point, as you say, to sort of all be learning and growing together. But also, I get the impression that certainly the first 2 games of the season, injuries permitting, I suspect the lineup's actually quite locked as well. That's the other thing. If someone comes in now, they don't even necessarily need to be on the bench for those 2 games. Liverpool should have the strength and depth at this point, unless something awful happens, to be able to put a couple of 11s together, which means that they can be focusing on the work that they're doing to improve themselves, and even leading into that away game at Old Trafford, conceivably as well. I think that Liverpool, I'm expecting that we've seen a fair bit of the starting 11 for the game against Ipswich and the starting 11 for the game against Brentford. So what that means is it almost becomes now an extended pre-season period, because Liverpool do also have the numbers. This is I understand why this is something where I've just done a conversation this morning that we'll be putting out next week with Ian Graham, and in Ian Graham's book, that conversation on the number of transfers that actually fail and the reasons why comes up. The book's really, really good. It's out next week, and we'll put the conversation out next week. But it's worth saying that you can create the best possible environment for players to succeed, and one of those good environments is by virtue of the fact that you don't have to rush them. One of the reasons that we talk about the success of Fabinho and Robertson is that we actually don't see that much of them for the first 3 or 4 months of the season in both of those instances. Liverpool have got that sort of framework possibly in place, but you still need to get the training time. There's no point one of these lads coming in, well, there is a point because you buy them for 5 years, but it's going to be harder to not even hit the ground running, but hit the ground in 2 months if you're bought on the 1st of September, because as soon as you get back from that international break, it is a game every 3 days. It will not stop, it will not relent. So you're not even getting proper training time with your players. Your playing becomes training, that's where you're learning it, and that'll just mean that it all takes a little bit longer. This time now is, we talked on the tour that the manager's bursting to get back for this Tuesday because he's got everyone for the first time. This is it, this is the real deal now, and this is where he gets them all, he can work with them all, they can all improve together. So to your point, it's absolutely spot on, but it's not just that this week's priceless or the week after Sevilla's priceless, the week after between Ipswich and Brentford's priceless, the week between Brentford and Man United's priceless. This is the useful time. And every club's in the same boat. It's worth also pointing that out. Every club pretty much is still looking to do 1 or 2 bits of business, might still sell 1 or 2. Every club's still in that boat, even though Liverpool haven't bought anyone yet. It's no different to, if Arsenal still had another 2 and Liverpool had another 3. It doesn't make that much odds at this point in time. I just think, though, every day is now a lost day, in a way that, to your point, wasn't necessarily the case mid-July. Now I think it is. Yeah.
You did the Gutter show yesterday, which was immediately after. In fact, it was a rewritten Gutter, wasn't it? I got the first agenda because Rob sent it to everyone, well, all of us at least, and then there was a hastily rewritten agenda because David Ornstein put a piece out saying that Liverpool are targeting a 6, that it's someone who's outside the Premier League and they're going to sort of look to get going on there. I'm not listening to the Gutter yet, apologies, I've had stuff on, been trying to get our bags back.
Yes.
Full-time job.
I've been able to brush my teeth, Josh. But no, I have, don't worry. Emergency teeth brush, I have one at all times. What was I saying? Yeah, so you did a Gutter, hastily rearranged. I'm sure Gutman was lashing names out, Willie and indeed Nilly.
Well, the funny thing is, like in Gutman's sort of childlike excitement about transfers, he basically wanted to hear the names that we had.
Okay.
And in my first answer, I was like, I've probably not got names for you. And he was just like, who are you?
Who brought him?
Who used to step into the gutter dome without a single name under your belt? So the
nameless Sexton, they call him.
The horse with no name. One of the ones I was thinking of was Andre Trindade, because it seems to me like the sort of easy link to make. He's someone who Liverpool have been interested in before. The only sort of concerns around that I had is that it feels like he is maybe one of more of the lads who kicks people. Like he felt like more of a Jurgen Klopp number 6 or a Jurgen Klopp midfielder than he maybe does a slot midfielder. Zubimendi was one of the names that came up and has been mentioned quite a lot since as well in sort of reports and rumours here and there. That probably feels more like he fits the bill of who Liverpool will be looking to be signing. There was a couple of, what just lads we were saying would be our dream ones. Andy Bell mentioned Fabian Ruiz, who I would say is probably one of the best sixes in world football. He's almost the upper echelon of what you'd be looking to get, but maybe at the sort of higher end of the age profile. And then Stu Wright mentioned Alan Varela as well from Porto as one that he particularly likes and one who he thinks we can sort of mould to be this perfect slot 6. And I think one of the things I mentioned on the show was that we can maybe start to overthink this whole stylistic thing, because we basically overthought the formations for the entire summer as well. And then Slot came out and basically said the formation you have all been chatting about us playing, I don't actually play. I'm probably more of a 4-3-3 man like your old fella. So it wouldn't be a surprise if again we go, oh, he's got to be like this, he's got to do this, and actually Slot can just get hold of basically any lad who he thinks is half good and mould him on the training pitch, because that's clearly the sort of manager he is. It's clearly what he sort of wants to do is sort of get his ideas across to these players in a big way.
I think the idea of him moulding someone I think is accurate, but I do think it is worth saying we were out in the US and when they haven't got the ball, they're defending something that looks like 4-4-2. When they have got the ball, they're building up with 2 in front of the back 4. I think that's not absolutely nailed on. Jones, for instance, went the other side of United because United tried to go man for man. So Jones went, well, sod you, then I'm going to go up here and we'll see how you deal with this, because someone's got to come with me or you've got a decision to make. But I think it has looked like it's 2 in front of the 4. I think in Slot's head he's saying, yeah, but as far as I'm concerned, the other one in that midfield who plays higher up, he's also a midfielder. So I see that number 10 position as more of a midfielder. I'm not picking four lads who you'd write down as forwards most of the time. I'm picking 3 who are midfielders, and Elliott's a midfielder. But he does play, in the game, the best performance I thought in pre-season. Szoboszlai and Jones are operating as a 2, and Jones actually said when you spoke to him, I was telling Harvey to get out. You get up there, you get out of our way, and we'll get it to you. That's how we're going to do this. So I think it's worth saying it is different. I think it's important, or it has been. Listen, it might go back, and there might be games where it's one lad who sits in as a holder, and there's 2 others who go higher. That's very, very possible. But most of the build-up play has been with 2 sitting in front of the back 4, building up with a 7 if you include the goalkeeper and the 2 full-backs, and then when they get into the middle third, one goes then a little bit. One goes, one stays. It feels a little bit like one full-back goes, one full-back stays, and the rest sort of hang in there, and that's a little different as well. I think that it looks to me like if you're going to have this idea of we can knock it round, we can recycle possession, and we can do it 30 yards from our goal, they need to be really good players. They need to be really good on the ball, really good on the half turn, and really press resistance. And I think that's something which I think that becomes, you can't ultimately, unless you say just buy Rodri, you can't say I want them to be able to do 23 things and get this list of all the things that you think they've got to be able to do. I think that, to me, the priority looks like that they can pass, they can keep recycling the ball, they're really good under pressure, they're really good at looking after it, and they don't give it away. Is all the things, but also that they've got to be able to pass forward. That's a key part of it as well. So for me, I think that they're sort of like your 3 main things that he's looking at for them to be able to do. Because the other thing is, if you just try and buy someone who, I just don't think Liverpool are going to be that interested in someone who's 7 out of 10 at everything. I think they're going to want, to the idea of moulding him, I think they're going to want the idea of he's got these really big strengths, and we'll coach him through the other stuff, and we'll work on the other stuff, and we'll make that work both as a team, work around where the weaknesses might be, we make that work as a team, but also that because there's these big strengths, then we back the idea that we'll sort the other stuff out. And however that works, that's the bit that's up in the air for me. But I think it's crystal clear Liverpool want the ability to be able to ping the ball through the lines in certain areas. They need there to be real touch. They need there to be real confidence in possession. I think that they're the key sort of things that they'll be looking for.
His first signing almost becomes then a bit of a statement, doesn't it, Josh? Yeah. Because Neil can talk about the attributes that he feels like that this player should sort of have, but we don't know exactly what they're putting into the computer, if you like, to sort of to find. I mean, all that sounds close to what I think as well. But until we see this first player, I think he's going to be the biggest indication of what a slot player is. And I always remember when Benitez comes in and Alonso's his first big one. I think Osimhen's a little bit before, but Alonso's his first big one. It's a clear indication of this is it. It's how it's going to be different, because I'm not going to say that Houllier would have had no interest in Xabi Alonso, because I think everyone's interested in him, but he was buying Igor Biscan, and so he was buying Bibi man, and so it was like oh right, this is going to be sort of different now, and I think it will be a real indicator of how he's going to play, who this player is, and when we sort of YouTube the ass off him, what it is he's up to.
Yeah, this is why I've been probably getting a little bit sort of tetchy, almost because I want to see, I want some evidence of what it looks like. I know Jurgen Klopp comes in at sort of strange time of the season when he comes in, but really you look at that first summer, and Gino Wijnaldum and Sadio Mane are two pillars of Jurgen Klopp's entire tenure, and they're two of his first signings that summer. And I don't think that's a sort of mistake by any stretch of imagination, in the same way you mentioned Xabi Alonso to Rafa as well. So I'm almost tetchy for that first signing, in the sense of I'm just excited to see who it is, what sort of player he is, and get a bit more of an idea of what Slot is looking to do going forward, because I think the squad he's currently got, there will be a bit of time and sort of progression with getting that system into them, getting them sort of coached. I don't want to say coached out of Jurgen Klopp's system, but sort of coaching them into a Slot way of playing. And I think you've seen some good early indicators, and particularly from the likes of Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott, who've been coming out and talking about how much they're enjoying the new methods, how much they feel like it benefits them. And I think there's a few other players who it could really stand to benefit as well. But I think seeing that first lad coming through the door, seeing what type of player he is, seeing which area of the pitch he plays in. I mean, me and Neil are talking there about the sort of six that he's playing with, and I'm talking about people overthinking. It would cut out a lot of the overthinking if he goes and signs the six, and then we can all be like, oh, so that's exactly who he wants to have there. So I'm really interested to see what happens over the coming weeks now. I think there is a sort of growing element of tetchiness, and I think some of it is people similar to me sort of just excited to see who that first signing is and what it looks like, but also understandably people who want Liverpool to continue to build on this upward trajectory, because there's other clubs around us who continue to strengthen. Manchester City continue to strengthen and things like that, so we want to make sure that we're right up there and competing for everything.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about Man City's business after the break, because it's sort of quite interesting. They've obviously, seemingly coming into a big chunk of change at the moment as well, so they'll have a little bit more to do. But before we do that, if I can gutman you, have you got any names that you'd like, or do you think are more likely, or you feel like would either please you or you think will please Arne Slot?
I think that the Zubimendi thing, because that there's a release clause, Liverpool like that. He looks like he's a player who can keep the ball moving. He impressed for Spain in the Euros. He looks like it's possible. I think there's a bit of a missed thing here where I agree with the point of it's a big statement, the first player he buys, but I think we need to sort of acknowledge there's every chance the first player he buys gets certainly fewer than 35 League and Champions League starts, because there's so many games and he's going to want to keep them fresh. There's McAllister, there's Jones also to come in and feature.
I don't think he necessarily becomes our best player.
Exactly.
I just think it's going to be indicative of what he wants
exactly.
to do.
So I think that's an important, but it's important because I think in everyone's head this next signing in midfield will become Liverpool's most important midfielder, whereas I just think that's just going to be Alexis McAllister. And then you sort of go from there on what the next bit is. So I think it's quite important. But one of the things that happens to McAllister last season is we get to see the legs fall off him at the very end because of the number of games that he's gone through and the onus that's been on him. And I think that there was a time, I think, where players would be saying things like, so are you guaranteeing me 50 starts? Whereas now it wouldn't surprise me if players' agents are saying, we'd like him not to play more than 40. Because I think everyone can see the toll that's going on these players now. And I think that if you begin to think of it that way, you can look at it and go, there's probably somewhere between 30 and 40, depending on injuries, League and Champions League, 8 guaranteed group games minimum, and then off the back of that 38 league games, if you're talking about getting 32, 33 of just that group stage and Premier League starts, that's a fair bit. I think Zubimendi's interested in that in terms of the fact that, he looks like he's one who would mesh very nicely with what it is that we're trying to do. Watched a couple of videos of him last night, wasn't overwhelmed in terms of being impressed, but you can see he's very happy to play with his back to the opposition goal, 30 yards away from his own goal, if you see what I mean. He's happy to play that way, move the ball around. That's what we've seen a little bit of in there as well. Varela has been talked about. I think Liverpool have got that connection, and that's there and that's present. I think there is the idea of maybe someone like Fofana, who I had a little look at last night, who doesn't look as competent in terms of what he can do on the ball, but does look as though he's got an absolute ton of energy with it, and if the manager fancies he can coach that and do it that way around, that's very possible as well. There was a young lad who was linked with Arsenal from the Bundesliga last year, 20, called Hugo Larsson, who I think is quite interesting in that, he's 6'2", 6'3", gets a lot of games last year in Germany, and I wonder whether or not Liverpool might almost think, if we can't get a cracker, let's sign one to rival or complement Bajcetic, and imagine that we build this over 3 or 4 seasons into what it's going to be next, with a view to the idea that the two of them are going to get a number of games going through it as well as you move all the way through. I don't think that seems unlikely. There's Veerman, who clearly passes the ball forward brilliantly, but supposedly doesn't do that well when he's pressured, which begs a ton of questions if you're going to invite pressure on. I think part of where you end up going through it all is you just sort of end up going, and that's why I think it has been difficult. I'm sure there'll be people in the comments screaming names. Well,
I'm going to ask Josh in a minute if what names are being screamed.
Or the idea that I'm making it seem as though it's harder than it is, because ultimately I wouldn't have a problem if they committed to Szoboszlai there and went, well, this is what we're going to work on. I just sort of think Szoboszlai might have a problem with it, in that he's not come to Liverpool to keep it ticking and look after other things. He might want to play further up. And so I understand that, and I think that's you've got to listen to your players. I don't think these days the idea that you just tell your players.
But also, if he's doing that, we're maybe one short in the 10, because when there's Harvey Elliott going to rest.
Exactly, but then I wouldn't mind saying, because I think there's more options for that. You see what I mean? That's why if I was doing this genuinely with a blank piece of paper and didn't have to think about emotions and humans, then I'd actually conclude, drop him in, trust that the manager coaches things into him. You work with the ones that you've got there, and I'd add attackers. But I'd always add attackers in that. Firstly, it's more fun, but also secondly, I think that if you're putting that stuff on the pitch at all times, you've always got a bit of a valve. It's quite late 2000s Ferguson, but I'm quite relaxed with that. What with him winning all the trophies, I'm sort of quite relaxed with that, and I'd do it that way round and sort of say, okay, let's push that player back, not least because a lot of the season means that we expect to be higher up the pitch and on the ball, but. As I say, it might well be that the footballers themselves have gone, nah, sorry mate, don't want to do that, I want to play higher. But also it looks to me like Szoboszlai might use him a bit like Bernardo Silva, where you watch him do a session where he plays off the wing when you were away and you saw the training. We've seen him do 10, he's now done something at 6, and it wouldn't surprise me if Szoboszlai ends up getting a lot of games, but by the end of the season we're going, well, what's his best position? But it doesn't matter if Liverpool have been successful, he's moving around a little bit. But again, that might open up to the idea of getting someone a little younger in as well and sort of making it work. I wish there was a name where you were able to, let's buy Xabi Alonso 2004. I wish there was him. If there was him, I'd say let's just go and buy him, because you go, well, he's the best one.
But I didn't know who Xabi Alonso was.
No, but none of us did back then. None of us knew footballers were really back then.
We might not know the new fella.
Sorry?
We might not know the new fella.
No, we might not, and it might be that someone comes in and they sort of grab your attention straight away, and you're going, yeah, that's what we've been waiting for and what we've been looking for. I think that's... there's names, it's meant to be a non-Premier League player, there's names that are in the Premier League that I can go, I wouldn't mind one of them, I wouldn't mind something like that. I wonder whether or not they might be looking at a South American market. I don't think it's necessarily Trindade for a couple of reasons, but Varela moves a couple of seasons ago, Enzo goes Benfica, first and then ends up at Chelsea. I wonder if there's a player that they've got their eye on who's currently playing in South America and they're thinking, we'll just cut out the middleman and see how we do. And then we really haven't got a clue about them.
But then it's I guess there's potentially a work permit thing and stuff like that. There's a couple of interesting ones that I noticed this morning. I was having a little look at the Echo live blog, and is it Kone who's still at Mönchengladbach? Remember him from sort of a season ago or 2 seasons ago, and he was one a lot of people saying, let's go and get him. He never actually went, and now it's available at much cheaper. So whether he's still on the list, whether the list is still the same, because it's sort of, out of a rejig of backroom staff, that was sort of an interesting one. I know a lot of people like Casado at Leverkusen, but I just think Leverkusen have just decided to keep the band together, and I'm really into that.
Yeah, I'm into that as well. But also, there's one of the lads who was Leverkusen's really highly thought of. He's actually out injured at the minute. I think it might be that one.
Yeah.
and he's out injured at the minute, and you look at his injury records and you're like, well, we could do without that.
Yeah.
So, you know, do we want to buy another player's injury problems when that's been one of the things that we've walked into, and that's the next sort of phase of this as well. It's worth saying that, you know, and again for all the Leverkusen's excellence last season, Granit Xhaka plays a key part.
Yeah.
And if you'd have said Granit Xhaka, people heads would be all over the show. It's worth saying. So this is why, for me, I'll say again, I think they do. If Szoboszlai is not going to be used there primarily, and he's going to move around at the very least, or just be used higher, I think they do need another one. If they're going to, the way in which they're playing, so I think they do need another one. I think so much of this is now coaching and fit and environment, and also the excellence of the players who are already there and helping through a couple of speed bumps in the early part of this. And I trust all of that. I genuinely do. So I'll be honest, I don't think it's going to be, unless it is like a complete surprise. Having had a look around, played around with bits and pieces on StatsBomb, you know, it can't be Frankie de Jong. It would be brilliant, but he's one of the highest paid players in Europe. Not like one of the highest paid players just at Barcelona. He's on an unbelievable wedge of money, and he'd be a really good fit, but he'd effectively have to take a 2/3 pay cut to put him at Van Dijk's level of Liverpool's pay structure. Yeah. Which you just can't, you know, so you can sort of go around and you can talk yourself like, you know, can we tempt Tony Cruz out of retirement? You can drive yourself.
And now we're talking.
Well, exactly, but that'll get your attention. You just sort of go through, and anyone who it ends up being will end up, I think you'll be able to make arguments for or against. Some people might be a bit nonplussed by. I suspect I might end up being a little bit nonplussed by. But the point is how it all comes together, and in the fullness of time, I think if Szoboszlai is going to do more of his stuff higher, then I think we do need to, you know, go and make sure that we get someone in, because for me the most important thing is this manager who we're already now excited by. I think it's fair to say this manager's given every chance to hit the ground running, because I think if he can, you know, I think there might not be much looking back. And that's not saying that Liverpool are going to, you know, we're going to romp home to a 108-point season and the title. More just the idea of, when I say no looking back, what I mean is the most important thing is that this gap that we've got between us and everyone else, we've got to keep that gap. We've got to, and if we keep that gap and keep that gap and keep that gap, leagues and Champions Leagues will come at some point. That gap between us and everyone beneath us is really, really important, because whilst that's there, at some point you then begin to gain ground on the others, and I want him to be given every opportunity to do that, and I think he can do that. I'm really, really buoyed going into it, so let's make sure he's got all the tools at his disposal.
Any names being shouted?
Yeah, so I mean, Neil's mentioned quite a few of the ones that I'm seeing sort of in the comments, and we've chatted about a couple of them at more length. Scott McCauley's mentioned Angelo Stiller. He says been liking what I've seen of Angelo Stiller. Yeah, Ben's in the last 24 hours. Feels very much like a Liverpool type of signing. There's a fair bit of love for Alan Varela and Zubimendi as well. A lot of chat about Zubimendi, to be fair. There's this exchange which I like, where Real Talk says it's going to be a big name, and Nigel Smith replies, "How big?" over 40 letters, which I do enjoy.
We'd all be buzzing off Kimmich. It's worth saying.
I don't think I would be.
I don't think I would be. No, but maybe I'm just being a fridge. Yeah.
No, because I remember playing Bayern Munich last year, and Tuchel was going, "I fucking need a 6," and everyone was like, "You've got Kimmich, you know," and he's like, "I fucking need a 6."
I think he might be a crab. That's my Kimmich position.
So the Tuchel wasn't having
forward all the time.
The Tuchel wasn't having.
The Tuchel might not do, but the Tuchel is in so many wonderful ways his own man. You know, he's an abrasive
no
old
one
man.
Understands it but his woman.
Yeah, no one, and she's not sure. You know, I don't know. I'd like to think that if it was Kimmich, people would go, all right, yeah, let's have a bit of this, because he does pass forward, he passes aggressively. I don't think it will be Kimmich, but I do think Liverpool and Bayern Munich have got a good relationship.
If he signs, he'd be the best Liverpool player ever. So that's
worth bearing that in mind.
Yeah, exactly. Stack from Hoffenheim's mentioned Sander Berg from Burnley, Jeremy Schouten, the big man, Jeremy Schouten among the other options.
He's been with United, and I think, and I'm annoyed because I think it's smart in that I don't think he's going to win a league with Manchester United, but he might help them move from whatever this is to something that's a little bit better.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's much more than that in terms of links. There's a lot of, a fair bit of sort of, as you'd expect, division over optimism and pessimism, and I sort of understand both, because I think we've gone from like a really certain situation to a bit of an uncertain situation, but actually the strategy on the whole has not really changed that much. Like we used to do not very many transfers with a really certain gaffer and backroom staff and things like that, and now it's gone to not doing very many transfers, but with a whole new thing. I think we're all just eager to see this new thing and what it likes. There's a lot lot of excitement for just seeing the Reds play football, which I'm all for as well.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, there's 2 chances on the telly on Sunday, one of them in person. If you are going to Seville, enjoy it. I know it's an opportunity for a lot of people who don't normally get to go to Anfield to go to enjoy it. Don't try and hang around for the second game. They're going to lash you out because that is behind closed doors at the Palmas, but it is live on LFC TV, so you can get a subscription for that. I think they do a month free in the summer. They normally do as well, so you can sort of, if you're not a subscriber, join for that, and then you might stay. Whoever knows, but there is two opportunities to watch the new Liverpool Reds. I'd be really interested to see if these players sort of coming back, who he throws in there and who he sort of starts. But loads of clues, I think, for that league game against Ipswich. But in terms of transfer chat, if you want more of that, more of the save, there is the gutter that Rob Gutman hosted yesterday. He is back in the country. That is good of him for now. Who knows what else he's got planned for the rest of August, but he is back in the country for now, hosting gutters. So if you do want to listen to more of that, make sure you subscribe to the Anfield Wrap, download the app. You can get some free tokens if you don't have it already, but it's theanfieldwrap.com/subscribe if you want to sort of get stuck into that. I know Neil's doing the trends tomorrow at the moment, and then there'll be loads of...
Can I do a point of order on that?
Yeah.
So we're doing a Talking Reds trends, me and Josh Williams. So I'm going to ask if you can sit in on it as well, because what we want to do is we've done those things that we put out for free, explaining predominantly expected goals. So what I want for that is, if you've got any questions, you can tweet them at me, neila@theanfieldwrap.com, email them in, or just come in on the comments. It's about sort of sweeping up. Was there anything that you weren't clear on, anything you're not sure of, other things you'd like to know, other bits we could be doing? It's very much public service broadcasting with me and Josh Williams tomorrow. So I think it's important, when we're beginning to talk, using the stats as much as possible, that as much people understand them. Because I think that to me the worry. And I don't think they're necessarily that complicated. I think the acronyms just make them sound complicated. I think most of the concepts are quite straightforward, but the acronyms feel as though people feel as though they're being gate kept, and I don't actually think they are. We talk to people in the stats and analytics community, and they want more people in. You know what I mean? But I understand why people feel like that. So tomorrow's Talking Reds is a real opportunity for that. That's what we're going to use it for. Okay, so that's going to be on the YouTube, which is exciting. So tomorrow, that's going to be there live at some point. I can't remember when exactly. It's around lunchtime. Tomorrow that's going to be sort of happening, so keep an eye out for that as well. But loads of great stuff on the app, loads of stuff looking forward to next season, because we are looking forward. Post-match content on Sunday, so loads of reasons to subscribe. But loads of stuff happening on YouTube at the moment as well, including the trends tomorrow. All the post-match pints from the tour are all free and available on YouTube as well, so do watch those. You might not have seen all of the games yet, so we did. We were sort of there dotted about the stadium watching that, and then pitch side doing the post-match pints after. But we were able to do them free because of the support at the moment from NordVPN, so I want to give a massive shout out to them right now and say thanks for their support at the moment. Thanks to we're able to do so much for free on YouTube with them, but also thanks as a user for when we were out in America, because I found it really good for sort of peace of mind in terms of internet security. We were logging on a lot of mad Wi-Fi's. They got madder as we went along. Me and Neil spent an interesting last day in Colombia running around places saying, what's your Wi-Fi like? Mainly told rubbish, and then we were like, where's the best one? A wonderful woman in the Colombia, you were like, let's go to tourist information. I was like, that's a great idea. You went in there, this lovely woman said, you want to go to the French bread shop? She wasn't wrong. She was not wrong at all. The internet speed was literally 70 times quicker than the fucking Hilton. So that's part of how we were able to get the show back. The free show was literally because we went there, and this woman said, yeah, you won't believe it. She just I asked her, and I thought this might take a bit of time, and she just went straight away, no, there. That's where we all go. That's where the locals go for the internet. But obviously we've all been there though. You're sort of logging on in interesting sorts of places and having that peace of mind of the extra security that a NordVPN offers is fantastic as well. So really good time to get stuck in with them. Also, I really enjoyed the American Olympics coverage. We were absolutely buzzing off it. The variety of the shows. I've come back here, been a little bit disappointed. So something like a NordVPN service allows you to change your virtual location so you can access coverage of even the same events that you're watching in other countries, if that is your bag. And I know Josh occasionally does that for the basketball to get the sort of the local coverage and things like that as well. Are you trying to get in? The volleyball I've watched. So that so you can change your virtual location. That obviously helps a lot with the Premier League coming back at the moment as well. But lots and lots of different ways you can access different sports or even
even just generally TV shows and films in other countries by changing your virtual location. So they've got a fantastic offer for Anfield Wrap subscribers. So if you go to NordVPN.com/TAW, NordVPN.com/TAW, there's 4 months free as well, and there is a 30-day money-back guarantee. That confident that you will enjoy the service. If you're not sure, after a couple of weeks, you can cancel and get your money back. So there we go. I just want to finish off. We went slightly longer on part 1 than I wanted to, but that's, well, planned to, but that was great because I thought it was really interesting. But just to sort of round up, Josh, about what other clubs are doing, because we don't stand still in this regard. And it's interesting. Man City are a really interesting one to me in terms of they weren't necessarily doing a lot. They were talking about having to sort of sell to buy, which is something that drives our fans mad. They haven't got a huge squad, but a couple of outs that they've done now will allow them to obviously spend. And the big one is Alvarez, who's gone to Atletico Madrid, who've been very busy and done some interesting business. I noticed Rob Gutman again can't keep him off the action, saying this is a inflating prices because of what they sort of got for him. I think he's a really good player. He's an international footballer. In fact, he plays for the best one.
Yeah.
He was brilliant in the World Cup, and I think they're looking at him and thinking that he could be on new Aguero.
Yeah.
Because it was incredible for him. And so, although I think it is a lot of money, for me, he is worth it. I think he's brilliant. I think he didn't necessarily fit in at Man City, but Pep Guardiola wants forwards to do weird things, and no other club. I think Atletico will just be fine with him scoring loads of goals and being boss, and I think he'll do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all, I think there's, broadly speaking, a lot of fans of Gabriel Jesus, and he's another one who didn't work out at City for sort of Guardiola type reasons, and his injury record at Arsenal's not been great, but I think there's no doubt that there's a player in there, so it is dead interesting. And I don't necessarily agree with Rob really that it's sort of inflationary. I think it'll wake the market up, which is what it probably needed, because there's been all these sort of PSR things hanging over the transfer window this summer. There's obviously been sort of 2 major tournaments, if you want to include the fact that the Olympics football is still going on at the moment as well. So it feels like there's been every sort of reason for clubs not to sign footballers this summer. So I'll be pleased to see things just wake up a little bit now, and maybe that's one of the first sort of big dominoes to fall. Because I mean, we've seen lads who are far worse footballers, I think, than Julian Alvarez going for bigger fees. So yeah, I don't think it's sort of going to make the market massively inflationary. I think it gives people a bit of a starting point to go, that's what he's going for. We can ask for X for our footballer.
Yeah, I've seen people saying, it means we can ask for a lot for Nunes. I just don't think it does necessarily. I don't think the two. I think he's almost unique.
Yep.
Because it's a rare chance to get a footballer like him, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And listen, I don't think City view Alvarez in the same way that we view Nunes. Like, Alvarez to them was not a project. Clearly, like they've got to the point now where they're like, Alvarez was one of our players. He wasn't necessarily completely indispensable. He goes to Atletico Madrid with our best wishes. Whereas I think you've seen from the way that Slot was announced in particular that we do see Nunes as a project still. So yeah, I wouldn't be sort of conflating those two things either. But it's dead interesting. I think there's going to be a bit of a mad few weeks in the transfer window now, because you look at it, City have only signed one player officially.
It's South American. You don't expect
Savio from
Troyes. You don't expect to
yeah.
play too much in the short term.
Exactly, yeah. And then Arsenal have obviously gone and signed Calafiori now. That's been made official. But on the whole, the teams around us have not sort of done a ton of business. It's basically been a couple of those sorts of ones. So yeah, I'd be interested to see what more happens over the next few weeks now.
Yeah, there's Solanke moves as well, isn't there? Which is quite an interesting one, because he's one who a lot of clubs have looked at. It does feel like, if he's going to Spurs, I think it does feel like there's a little bit more happening now, just across the board.
I think there is. I think it's become decision time, and I think also it's the idea that players are coming back to training, or they're going to go back to training where the new club is and things like that, or predominantly that, and that's a big deal. I think Alvarez is. I think it is really interesting. I think he's been I take the general. It's a very odd thing to say that he's simultaneously able to be deemed to be expendable for City, but I think he's been almost integral to them. He last season, it's worth saying, we always say of one of the biggest abilities, availability. He's played 103 games across 2 seasons for them in all comps, whilst also playing.
It's a lot of starts.
That's a lot of starts, and also played an unbelievable number of games for Argentina as well. And it might be that City might actually have looked at that and gone, Jesus Christ, there's some miles on the clock here for this lad, so it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world at this point. He's also, it's 36 goals across those games in all comps, whilst also playing with Haaland. And it's worth saying Haaland gets the chances. That's the point of Haaland.
Yeah.
So I think that one of the, it's worth saying that City buy Alvarez arrives at City at the same time as Haaland's first season. So I think that that's ever so slightly sort of constrained the sort of player he can be. He becomes there to serve the team that's built around Haaland as much as anything else. I don't think it is an outrageous fee. I've been surprised all the people who were saying I can't believe they're paying that for that. He's 25 years old and he's the only footballer ever to win the World Cup and do the treble in the same season. And he played a lot of games. He started every game for Argentina and he played a lot of games for Manchester City. So the quality's there. I don't think you can argue with it. I really don't. Just because he doesn't catch the eye as much as other footballers for a couple of reasons doesn't mean that he's not a genuinely excellent footballer.
Yeah, and he doesn't catch the eye largely because he's being asked to do non-eye-catching things.
Yeah, exactly. He's there to do a bit of water carrying. Yeah. And 2 seasons ago it was for a combination of Haaland and De Bruyne. Last season he plays a little bit in Haaland's stead and De Bruyne's not always available. But last season's the season of Phil Foden, where City commits completely to Foden. So what Alvarez's job then becomes is he's doing a lot of spade work, and it might well be that he'll continue to be that player who does spade work. But if you're a player who does spade work, let's be clear about this. His last 2 seasons at River, he bangs 24 and 18. Then he gets 17 and 19. So if you're a lad who's doing a lot of spade work for you, bringing people into the game, keeping the game alive, pressing for you really intelligently, getting a ton of appearances, is also getting you circa 20 goals at the same time. That's a footballer. That's one you'd like to have around the place. I think he's a really good player, and I think it's about right. I don't think it is something that's outrageous or anything like that. And I think we are going to see a bit of movement. Your point on Spurs, I think Spurs have got to do stuff because they've got European football this season that they didn't have last season, and the legs fell off them. The legs fell off Tottenham last season, and I think that I think everyone's just coming to terms with this idea that this is really, really hard and arduous now, and I think that I almost look at United at the minute, and I don't know how they're going to do it. I genuinely don't know how they're going to do. Are they going to make where they currently are work with Thursday Sundays as well? I think it's going to be difficult for them, and they don't appear to have that much wiggle room. They can't go and do 80 million on Branthwaite because they possibly need to do 3 players. And also they've already got themselves into an injury crisis situation.
They've got 4 managers though, so they can rotate them.
They can rotate them smartly, cleverly. I've just talked to Tom Farkey about Villa, and he's like, it looks like there's a lot of congestion in certain areas of our squad now, but they're about to go through a Champions League programme as well and need to sustain at the same time. And I think that, listen, City, the way in which they're being built, the nature of the players they've got, the sheer quality that they've got, the positional versatility that they've got, I think that City are, relatively close to unique. I think that other sides do need numbers. Other squads do need numbers, and I think City might well just only replace Alvarez with one, and they might already know who he is. I think Savinho will actually play games early and often. You want to keep your eye on him for fantasy football. I think he might well be involved, Savinho, from the outset a bit more than players have been in the past. They've got Grealish to come back into the fold as well in there, but it wouldn't surprise me if they go out and recruit another one. And some lad who was crap last season is just brilliant this season for reasons no one understands. That's very, very possible as well, but I think that City will do one off the back of this. Minimum, and maybe another one off the back of that, because they feel as though they might need the bodies, because they have got to live a Swiss system thing, and I know you're bored by it, but the truth of it is City have been getting away with Champions League groups where the toughest opponent is Leipzig. That's not going to be the case next season for them. They're going to have 4 really hard games, and one of them could be Leipzig, don't get me wrong, Leipzig away, but they'll be playing proper teams and they'll need to get results in them. So I think there's a chance that there might be a little bit of a rude awakening there insofar as City ever get one. I think you need bodies, and I think that it's going to be busy across the next couple of weeks. The thing that needs to sort of happen is for there to be sense around transfer fees, and I think that that's in there. I think that sustainability has begun to hit in the Premier League. It'll have knock-on effects, but I'm expecting there to be movement. I just think it might not be as all singing, all dancing, hitting the 2 billion spent mark that you've had in the past. I think there might be a bit less of that, but I think there'll be a lot of movement in the next 3 weeks.
Exciting times. We'll be covering it obviously on the Anfield Wrap, on these shows, on the Tour app, audio and video. Great times to subscribe as we talk about who potentially might come in for Liverpool, and of course build up to the important business of the Premier League starting away at Ipswich next week. I absolutely can't wait. I'm going to the game. I'm really excited. Craig's doing a night in Ipswich on a Friday. He's found a revolution. He's excited as well. So
it's off the ball.
Yeah, it's all good. He's found a place to go. He's giddy about a night out in Ipswich, and why not? That is genuinely what it's all about. But huge thanks to Josh, to Neil, to Ash, who's making everything happen behind the camera, and of course NordVPN for partnering with us. Have a lovely day. Up the Reds.
A VPN, short for Virtual Private Network, is a cybersecurity tool for privacy and security. When you connect to it, a VPN creates a secure tunnel and secures data traveling between you and the VPN server. Encryption scrambles data, so to anyone outside the encrypted tunnel, the information looks like gibberish, meaning no snoops can sneak a peek at your online activity. NordVPN ensures that you can browse safely and privately in just a few clicks.